really warm, like orange. I don't know, just, it's very comforting, like an orange red.
It changes all the time. Today, I see like a moving watercolor of like violet and like this almost mustard yellow.
I think orange. I think orange or like a sunshiny yellow, sunshiny yellowy orange, just because it is a bright spot.
I tend to think of purple. Really, though, almost like a peacock feather array of colors. That's what I tend to think of. Probably about this color, actually, this magenta. That's one reason I wore it.
I'm Mary Morgan, also known as Aya. And you are?
What's your work title?
Owner, president, manager, bookkeeper.
General person in charge.
Yes.
I'm Morgan Adams. I'm her daughter. I'm a manager.
It started in the 100 block of South Limestone downtown, which is now a parking garage. It came to be because David Adams, Morgan's father, was tired of the corporate world and wanted to do something different. So he started the store with his own book collection. It was a used bookstore at the time. And then, inspired by the Whole Earth catalog and all the books that they reviewed and talked about, he started a business so that other people could find those things without having to order them and stuff, which was a lot harder in 1972.
Well, most people don't know or remember that in the early 70s, 72, 73, 74, 72 primarily, there were 3 little stores on Limestone. We opened ours in October, November of 72. We named it For Madmen Only, taken from Herman Hesse's chapter in Steppenwolf, I believe. And lo and behold, we turned to our right and up popped a bookstore with a crazy name that we couldn't pronounce and a very odd fellow in the back. And on the left of us was another store, and this was called The Store. It sold pipes and papers and posters and waterbeds. We existed as a community. So the owners of the head shop got thrown in jail. We bought the head shop. So then we had For Madmen Only, the head shop, and there was David. Sometime in 73 or 74, I don't remember when, we sold our 2 stores to David.
And I wandered in there, he wasn't even hardly open. And he was building bookshelves and doing stuff. And I talked to him for a while and said, "Do you want some help, painting?" Because he was getting ready, he'd built them, but he was getting ready. So I came back that evening and we painted bookshelves for 2 or 3 hours. And I always thought that David was kind of puzzled that anybody would offer to do that for him or with him. And that was kind of David. He was not fond of people, really.
And then it moved to the building next door from here, which used to be a little white Victorian house. That was 377 South Limestone. It was there until 1980. We moved here in 1980. I started in 1977. So I was, of course, part of the move, which we carried things across the yard and through the bushes into here until it was all done. And we built the shelves and everything. So we moved in this building in 1980, the entire building. Part of the downstairs, like a fourth of the downstairs, was an apartment, which David and I lived in. And books were primarily downstairs, and gift items and stuff upstairs. We sublet, I guess, a corner of the upstairs to Bears Wax Records. And he was there for a while. Then, let's see, around the time I was pregnant, and there are pictures to prove this, we made a deal with a restaurant to come in, and they remodeled the downstairs, and we were still living downstairs in the back. And at that point, actually, after Morgan was a year old, we moved across the way because the apartment was so small, she didn't have room to crawl. So we had to get a bigger space.
I remember Aya and I remember Morgan being in here, and that being such a positive, it seemed like a very happy and positive relationship. And I always thought how neat it would be to grow up basically in a space like this.
I was pregnant with Morgan the same time my mom was pregnant with me. Morgan's, I think, 8 days older than me. So they were commiserating in their pregnancies together when they would come in and kind of check on each other.
I've been told multiple times that I used to have like a little bouncy thing
A little
back in
swing
the office.
chair, yeah.
And there's holes in the ceiling where they were trying to find the appropriate part to like screw it into so that I wouldn't just like collapse onto the floor, I guess. So I don't know. It's always been an integral part of my life. I was homeschooled, so I would just come here and bring people up and learn math that way, basically. I remember being fairly young, and I would take all the little plastic and rubber bugs from the toy section and create sort of an imaginary stew with them. Like run and get like one of the baskets that we sell and just like fill it with all these bugs. And I made a little menu of the different bug menu options, and then demand that employees sample my wares. So I guess I was already sort of getting involved in sort of the spirit of the store, but not quite the exact retail. I'd always worked at the store since shortly after Bug Stew. Probably at least from like age 14 on, I was pretty consistently here. So it had been a big part of my life, and I've always enjoyed being here. I went away for college. I got my degree in English, which is so useful for everything, really. And I actually went on to get my MFA in creative writing from Indiana University. And so at that point, I did kind of face the question of, do I want to return and help out at Skeshel? I knew the runnings of everything basically at that point, from working over the summers still and from just before I'd gone away for school. So I had the choice to become more involved in the store and to step into that management role. Just the more I was maneuvering through academia and learning about that world, the more I missed just the idea of coming to the store, organizing things, helping people find what they needed, and going home at the end of the day and not having to grade. So I'm not only here because I don't have to grade, but it is a plus.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Well, there was a time when we tried to open a store in Louisville. That was in the late 70s, 78, 79. It ran for about 4 or 5 years before we closed it.
What was its name?
The Cloister. It was in a little. It was in an area of town being regentrified, and it was in a school. And the school had a church with it. It was an old Catholic school, so the Cloister was the name of the complex. And anyway, and well, I didn't, but David had dreams of little Sketchel medias popping up everywhere, is how he would phrase it. But so he was always wanting to do a new thing, but never wanting to stay with the one that was going on, in my opinion. And since I was running them, I didn't really want to keep doing that. So we also had a store out in Crossroads for a while called Brass Lion Books, which was also a little mini Sketchel media.
And so you all had those titled like book and gift emporiums.
Yes,
Plural.
Oh, and then there was Morgan Ham's Books.
Sorry.
Of course.
Backtracking a little bit.
The namesake. Yeah, Morgan Ham's Books.
That was around for about 20
years. Yeah. Strictly used books, basically. A little bit of incense.
Very different store than this.
Very different store. Yeah. All about books and all about, people coming in to trade and get new ones, and had a different collection of books. But
I think it was kind of like a neighborhood focused bookstore.
In the old days, there was the store was in the little house next door, and there were two signs. As you came in a hallway, and there was a sign said "Thinking About It," and then it listed the categories of books that way, and another sign going another way saying "Doing It," and it mentioned the categories. So you had your arts, literature, philosophy, religious sort of things one way, and then you had your crafty building and homesteading, kinds of things the other way. And it was kind of like stepping into a book or a way of knowledge, giving knowledge to people. And I still think that that's what we do, but not only with books, but with a lot of items as well.
I was 15, and I think I saw the sign. I thought, what is that? I have to go there. And I rode my bike over from home, and Sketchel had the whole building then, and so I got lost in all the books downstairs. I'm a very bookish person, so it was a wonderful place to escape and to discover things. I think Sketchel is an experience. It's not just, I don't even like to shop, so it's not like shopping when you come to Sketchel. It's like exploring.
For me, it's like a little fairyland, and it's in this unassuming brick building. But when you come inside, it's kind of like being transported into some ancient library of hidden and arcane knowledge. And then if you look and you see all the different variety of books they have, and the artifacts and jewelry and things, you kind of get the feel this is a safe space for me to explore and see what I want to be.
I think probably some people who would never see themselves as coming into a place like this, once they came in, they would be, their interest would be piqued by something, and they kind of forget that they're in a weird store. I think it's for anyone that that just wants to explore, explore learning something new, or experiencing something new.
It was actually my first week at UK back in 2016. I just remember thinking, I've never been to a shop like this before. Now, though, I live back in Cincinnati, and so now it's a big deal to come up, but I still come up every couple months, and everyone's always so kind to me. Every time I come back, they always remember me.
This store is a center of what I consider Lexington.
Well, there's nothing else like it in Lexington. There's not much else like it in the universe.
In a lot of ways, Sketchel kind of represents this like Lexington counterculture to a lot of people, especially folks who aren't from Lexington, to come here and like see that this place like exists and is sort of like a home for all these people and things.
It's definitely a feeling of home.
Almost like a homecoming, honestly.
I mean, it feels like home in a lot of ways, but it's a home that's never boring or mundane.
Cozy, cozy lendemain, là-bas sur le ciel clair, il existe une cité au séjour enchanté.
I moved here. I was at Berea College. I'd finished my junior year. I fell in love with a guy, and he was horrible. But my sister-in-law had suggested applying at Special Media when I moved to Lexington. And she was like, "Oh, it's great. You'll love it." So I came in, and I think I'd been once in college. And at the time, it was the only place I'd applied when I moved to Lexington, surprisingly. And I think I got a call back 2 or 3 days later and came in for an interview and was hired maybe the day after. So it was like it was meant to be, I think. I think I want people to realize, and I love the idea that there's a big world out there. I think to explore that world and enjoy that world is super important. And I think it speaks to the things we carry, things from India, things from Africa, things from Japan, I mean, all over the world. Early on with Aya, I went to her and I wanted to do these art shows, and then we carried lanterns, and I thought, man, it'd be great to have these art shows lit with these lanterns. And so I'd find these places on the cheap, and we would light these with lanterns, and you get 35 of the arts community, members of the arts community together and have them show art. A lot of that was sponsored by Special Media. Aya is really open to the arts, open to community, open to creating an atmosphere that's really lovely. And, that led into the Kentucky Theater used to do the Rosa Goddard Film Festival. Rosa Goddard, when she died, she left money to the Kentucky Theater to do an international film festival. I went to the film festival all the time. We used to run a full week, and there would be 2 or 3 films a night, repeating some through the week. And when that stopped, when the money ran out, I went to Aya and I was like, let's take this over. I don't want to see this die. And she said, "Do you know how to do this?" And I said, "I don't." And she said, "Okay, let's figure it out." And so for a while, we booked the films. We got the stuff organized. Then there was making posters for the films, because we didn't want to just go with the posters that were there. We wanted something a little different that really set the film festival apart. And then, came bags and t-shirts, and let's do that. Let's do anniversary posters and that sort of thing. And it's just fun. I mean, it kind of, sometimes Special Media to me, and especially aspects of what I do, feel like the 70s art classroom. There's a certain kind of, for me, just play in that. And we used to carry magazines. We have this sign, which is right up there, and it's "Relax, read a magazine tonight." And so we had this big, long display case. It was tall, but pretty narrow, actually. And I said, "I've got this idea for a display." So I took the sign and I hung it kind of diagonally in the case, just on an old piece of wood. Just it looked very kind of, I don't know. It was not your typical display. And so then I took pages from these magazines and wadded them up into balls. And then I filled a lot of the case up with that. And so then what I did was I took pages from the magazines and I covered the whole wall around them. So then you have this, "Relax, read a magazine tonight." And then I'd taken like one of the old clipboards, and I'd just gotten some paper and printed out. It said, "Or rip one apart and make something." And people love that, and it was so kind of display, but anti-display, I mean, it was more about, hey, you can do this. And, we used to do like a picture poem contest that was based on the poet Kenneth Patchen's picture poems, and he's Aya's favorite poet. And so that's why we started doing it, is because of that, and figuring out a way to honor him and honor National Poetry Month. So, yeah, I mean, it's lovely when you have this kind of place where you can come and just play and figure things out and make things. I feel super lucky to get to be here. I feel super lucky to get to come, after 27 years, I'm still excited to come to work. It's very fulfilling. And the people that work here, Aya, Morgan, I love them. And we've been through so much together, when David died, that was a lot. And I think about David a lot. I think about the fact that he gave us this opportunity to get to live this life. David was very hands off, I mean, he liked to hide, and I totally get that. I love to hide. Which for me always made David a little mysterious. He loved numbers, and I mean, there are just these little fragments and bits that I've collected about David through the years. And yeah, I mean, we have the picture there of him, and I look at him every morning when I come in, and it's nice, even with a portrait, it's kind of like a friendship.
So my father started the store in 1972. My mother started working here in 77, so about 5 years after the store began. And from how they both sort of told it, it wasn't very long at all before she was very central to running the store and becoming kind of an equal partner in the business. So I don't know exact dates there, but definitely like all of my life, and from fairly early on in the store's life as well.
Well, I guess I started managing instead of dealing with people because he was not comfortable dealing with people a lot. Definitely, and he would admit to being a curmudgeon, hermit. I wouldn't say that people scared him so much as he just was uncomfortable around a lot of people. He'd been an actuary. He was a math professor before all this. So he felt more comfortable in that range of things. And I did more of the people aspect of things. One-on-one, he would talk to somebody forever. And that could be a problem sometimes when somebody came in that he liked to talk to. Anyway, so it kind of turned into, he was behind the scenes in that way. We would go to buying shows together and stuff. But he would look for new things and mostly do bookkeeping. We became partners in life as well as in the store. I'm not even sure what that time frame was like. Probably within a year or so of me working here, maybe. And we got along well enough to 10 years after that, I had a child, so we didn't rush into anything in that respect. And this whole store, which is my vision, I guess, at this, but it didn't start as my vision, obviously, because I didn't start it. But I think that were he still here in this day, he would be pleased with the trajectory.
She's probably one of the most composed and hardworking people that I've ever met, and a role model for how to be cool. And I feel like you can really trust her with anything, honestly. It's funny. I used to always tell people that my mom was the hardest working person I knew, which is true, but my mom's retired now. So as far as the hardest working people that I possibly know, I really do think it's I mean, I feel like the thing about Aya is that She knows how important it is to like be here and be a part of your business as well. And she's never lost touch of the store because she's always here. And I feel like you see so many business owners like take a back seat or like get to a point or a level of confidence or comfortability with not being a part of your store so that it gets away from you. But like, she's here more than anybody. I feel like that's why it's still her store. I mean, I feel like she embodies Sketchel.
I watched Aya working with a guy who wanted to buy a tarot deck. Where else would you find those in Lexington? Or at least in the Variety. And she's probably spent 30, 40 minutes with him. And this was during a sale. And she manages the store. You don't find that out in the world too much. Nobody has time for it or thinks they have time for it.
I don't think there is a day that I work that I'm not able to share something with somebody that makes them happy. When someone comes in and remembers you from years and years and years ago, it always reminds you that even when you are just doing your job or just helping a customer or just being nice, even if you don't think that you're doing something incredibly memorable, people still remember you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. How many jobs can people go home at the end of every day and say, like, I really helped somebody?
When I was sad, I'd come in here all the time. I went through a terrible year, my last year of college, and I would come in here all the time, and no one ever said anything. No one ever acted like I was out of place or that I shouldn't be here, even though I wasn't always spending money. I didn't always have the money to spend. And I think that made a big difference to me. Their kindness and generosity, it just really shows through in their work. And I think it's really shown me how much of a big difference that small businesses can have. This is my favorite shop I've ever been to, and I hold it as the gold standard to what I think small businesses can be.
I had someone that was buying like a little Dolly Parton sticker and a little card that had rainbow on it, and it said like, I love you for you. And then they asked if I knew if we had any trans pride stickers, and I like showed them the little stickers that we have and showed them which one was the trans pride flag, and they said, my son just came out and all you got to do is support him. And I was like, I really I love things like that happening. I love seeing that.
My wedding ring is from Sketchel, and my wife and I stood at the counter and we picked out these rings. And we thought, you know, not only are we accepted here so that we can do this as gay people, but it's really cool that we just got our silver rings over the counter at Sketchel. It means a lot. It's kind of in line with our values. You know, the values that the proprietors of Sketchel have, and that Sketchel has taken on a life of its own and created those values. I have those values.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes I'm a little fascinated that I'm not sure what we do, that how this works, but people back in 1972, I'm assuming, although I did work here before I ever worked here. I forgot that. That's confusing. I worked at the store, which was one that was like a subsidiary of Sketchel Media for a little bit. But David never knew it because the employee there would just, when they didn't want to work, they would just call up one of their friends to come in and work, and he never knew that somebody else was manning the store. Anyway, but the things that were carried from the very beginning, people thought, oh, well, this is a cool place to shop, you know, and we are still doing that. And people still think it's a cool place to shop, but we're talking multiple generations of people that still think it's like for them, you know?
Mhm.
And how do we do that? Is it just because we order and get things that we like and have a certain,
We have
that
good
has
taste.
a vibe? That
I mean, we must, right? To some extent.
we must. Classic, I guess, in some ways. Classic alternative taste. Or, well, alternative's not even a good word anymore because nothing's alternative, is it? Is it?
Wow, we're okay. We're going down a rabbit hole
Okay.
here.
Sorry.
Tomato Man.
But no, I just find it, I find it interesting that, like, especially, you know, I'm an older person now, but people come in and younger and, you know, high school kids, and they think, oh, this is so cool. 10, 15 years later, high school kid, oh, this is so cool. It's like it's for them. But a lot of things fade away in time, as you know, and they don't have, but somehow social media has that lasting power of being cool for, is it like a tooting your own horn saying that? But I don't know, it seems like that's the case from what people say.
You know, 45 years, and it's older than that, but I've been coming here for 45 years, and that's amazing because so many other things have changed in Lexington, and I don't necessarily see that as progress, some of the things that have changed. So Sketchel has remained. It's iconic.
You walk in and you know this place has been visited and has so many stories, and literally every inch of it is lined with literal stories. It just feels very, very safe, and it has this aura of like, you can grow here. You are encouraged to grow here. It's honestly kind of like an anchor, a cornerstone for so many people.
I like people, you know, since the pandemic, things have changed, you know, but I like that that people enjoy the store, that they, you know, some people, it helps them get through really hard times being able to come in here. And that when I go out, if I do go out amongst people, they are happy to see me because what I do brings them joy. And, you know, you don't get that with a lot of jobs. Did I answer the question?
About our purpose.
Our purpose.
As a retail store, literally our purpose is to sell things. But beyond that, I think that we kind of seek active engagement with the world through the things that we carry and offer to people.
A safe place to shop where you can be who you are.
Yeah.
Unless you're a mean, angry person, and then you can't.
Then you have to leave.
Yeah.
Valencia, in my arms I held your charms beneath the blossoms high above. You loved me. In Valencia long ago we found our paradise of love.